In a previous screencast, I talked about the string functions in Excel, and now I wanted to go through the equivalent string functions in VBA. So we had the left function in Excel. In VBA, there's the left function that matches the left. There's also the mid and the right and the len. So those do the same thing that the Excel functions did. There is no find function, but there's something known as the in str or in string, and I'll show you how this works here in an example. Let's look at these in VBA. So I've just created a sub here. I've dimmed s as a string, and here we have our big word s. And now I'm going to show you how we can use the left function. So here we can message box the leftmost 7 digits of our string. The mid function will start with the 10th. So the second argument is where you start, and the third argument is how long. So when we run this, we message box the 10 letters starting with item 10 of the string. And finally, the right function, the rightmost 5, we can use using the right function, and we get iosis. We can use the len function to calculate the length of our string. And then we can use the instr. It's very similar to the find or search. The arguments are a little different order. So we can have the start. By default, you start at 1, so you can leave that off. But then you look through the string for different substrings. So I could do where is micro found. And when we run that, it tells us that we have micro starting at the 14th character of our string. And similarly, if you wanted to find multiple matches, if I knew that the second NO was after the first one, we can search through our string to find the first match after, so starting at letter 20 or character 20, and when we go through that, we find that it starts at the 36th position. We've got the U case, so the uppercase, we'll make it all uppercase. We've got the lowercase, so that's with an L, so similar to the lower function in Excel that makes everything lowercase, and there is no equivalent to the proper function in Excel. In Excel, we have the concatenate and text join functions. In VBA, we have the ampersand, and you guys have already got a little bit of experience with this in the first part of the course. By using message boxes and input boxes, you can concatenate numbers and strings using the ampersand sign. So that's one way to do that. There's also a join function that's built into VBA. It doesn't join strings like the ampersand does, but it joins strings that are found in an array. There's also something known as the split function. Splits a string using a delimiter. This is sort of the opposite of the text join function in Excel. We can split a longer sentence into smaller words using a delimiter, like a space or a comma or semicolon and so on. So I've got a couple examples that I wanted to show you that we will work through so you can understand the join and the split functions in VBA. So I've made a subroutine called joining strings. We dim B as a vector size 3, and B is just composed of A, B, and C. And then I'm going to use the join function to combine these into a single word. So I'm combining elements of a vector into a word. And when I go through this, then we join that and we get A space B space C. What you can't see from here is there's actually a space before the A. The reason for that is that when we do this, B actually has a 0th element. And you should have learned from the previous module, in order to eliminate this, we want to add in option base 1. Now when we run through this, we don't have a 0th element of B, and there isn't a space before the A, which could be problematic in some scenarios. Now you probably want to remove these spaces, so I'm going to show you how we can just quickly implement a for loop to remove these spaces. First, instead of using the message box here, I'm going to set the joined message equal to join, and I have to dim that variable. So I've dim joined message as string. I'm also going to have just a message as string. That's going to be our final message. Now we're going to go through a for loop to look through the odd. We're going to extract the odd elements of the joined message. So that would be A, position 1, and then 3, which would be B, and C, which is position 5. So we're eliminating the spaces at 2 and 4. I've implemented a for next loop here where we go for I equals 1 to the length of the joined message, which will be 5 in this case, in increments of 2. So we're going to go 1, I equals 1, 3, and 5. And we're just going to extract then, we're going to ignore the spaces that occur at even numbers of I. And during each iteration, we're just setting the new message. The message will start out as blank. It's going to equal the old message, plus we're going to use the mid function, and we're going to start with the ith element of the joined message. We're going to do one character at a time. So when I equals 1, we're just going to take the A of length 1. Then I will be bumped up by 2 because of that step 2 to 3. Then the new message will be A plus the third element, and in that way we're going to then add just the single letters in the odd positions. Well, we need to dim I as an integer. So we run through this, we create our B vector that I can open up here, and then we create our joined message, which is A space B space C. Now we're going to iterate just through the odd numbers of I, and we're going to, so the message down here in the locals window will start out as A. Now I is 3 because we bumped it up by 2. So the message here is AB, and then we have C. So that's how you can take spaces out of this. However, what if we didn't have just single letters, we had maybe multiple strings of varying size? Then we'd have to look for spaces that are not in a regular pattern. To do this, I can modify my for next loop. First, I'm going to remove the step 2 because we don't have a consistent step. We're just going to go by 1. And I've added an if-then statement. If not, mid-joined message. So if I start with the I equals 1, so if the first element or the second element, these are all length 1, so we basically sort through all the letters one at a time. If they're not equal to empty, so if they're not, actually this should be a space, if they're not equal to a space, then the message will be the old message starting from nothing, plus one at a time we're going to take the ith letter or character of the joined message and we're going to add that to our message. Forgot to put an if there, so now when we run through this, we create our B vector. You see B then, after we join it into the message, we have spaces here between the B and the C and the E and the F. So we go through this. The first letter is not a space, so A is not a space, B is not a space, but then C is a space. So we skip right over that. When we don't have a space, we combine those letters one at a time into our message string. So we bypass that. Now I is equal to 4, so that's C. C is not a space, so we added that to our message, and that's how we can go through and eliminate all of the spaces when we don't have a consistent format.